I want to relate to you one of my favorite stories. Rav Zev Wolf was a man on a mission in the 1920s to convince Jews to move to Israel. Was not an easy task. I mean, we think it's hard convincing people to move to Israel today. Think about in the 20s when there was no infrastructure, when leaving America to move to Israel was literally risking your life. Yet, Rav Wolf came, spoke to different congregations, talking to them about the importance of supporting the Yeshuv, about the spiritual greatness that could be achieved when moving to Israel. And indeed, there was a man, his name is Rabbi Yerachmiel Weissler, and he was blown away by Rav Zev's earnest words, and he decided he was a wealthy businessman, but he was going to wrap up his business and move to Eretz Israel. And he took a business trip, not a business trip, he took a trip just to check it out. And while he was there, he was blown away by the spirituality, by the way that people live there. He was convinced he was going to move here. And he wanted to visit the famous yeshiva in Chevron, where people learn tremendously with Mesiras Nefesh, self-sacrifice. And he was so blown away that he decided that he was going to send his son to learn in this yeshiva while he wrapped up the business in Chicago. So it was, for about 9 months, his son learned amazingly strong in this Chevron yeshiva. There are a lot of Americans who are learning there to get spiritual inspiration. And then tragedy struck. In the 18th day of the month of Av, the famous, terrible Chevron massacre occurred, where Arab murderers came and with swords brutally murdered many of these righteous students who were learning in Chevron. And unfortunately, Rav Yerachmiel's son was amongst those who was terribly murdered. Meanwhile, Rav Zev had no choice but to continue his work, and he continued to come to America and urge and cajole and scream and tell people how important it was to continue to support Eretz Israel and continue to give money and to move to Eretz Israel. And he went from place to place, but there was one place which Rabbi Yerachmiel could not bring him place to visit anymore, and that was, of course, Chicago, because he feared that day that he would have to come face to face to Rav Zev, knowing that his words had convinced Rav Zev to send his son to Chevron. He couldn't face it. And one day, Rav Yerachmiel was in New York, and he was at a wedding, and he sees someone coming close to him, and he was taken aback because it was Rav Zev. And he tried to avoid him, but he couldn't. And he was greeted with a big hug from Rav Yerachmiel. Rav Yerachmiel said, "No, Rav Zev, how come we don't see you in Chicago anymore? Why aren't you doing your holy work? We miss you so much." Rav Yerachmiel tried to avoid it, but he couldn't avoid it. And he said, "I'll tell you the truth. I was too scared to see your face. How could I see your face after what I did to you and your family?" And after a long silence, Rav Zev said, "What you did for my family? You did everything to my family. You gave us everything. You see, heaven had decreed that my beautiful son would only get 16 years in this world. And if he wouldn't have died in Chevron, who knows? Maybe he would have died in a car accident in New York. Maybe he would have died from a disease. But because of you, he spent his last years learning Torah in the beautiful Chevron yeshiva. Because of you, he was zoche to mekadesh Shem Shemaim, to sanctify God's name by dying for the sake of the land of Israel." Wow. This story related by Rav Yaakov Ariel and retold by Rav Shwad Ron is, to me, one of the most powerful statements of faith. We truly have to believe that everything that happens to us is from God. And if bad things happen to us, for whatever reason, that was God's reasons that it needed to happen. All we can do is try to do the best, make the best of every situation, try our best to serve Him. And when challenges come our way, we can approach it with emunah, knowing that we tried our best and Hashem has a plan for all of us. May we be zocheh to live with true emunah, like Rav Zev exemplified. Have a great day.